This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Princess of Silmar ran like a champion this afternoon. And Strong Mandate is geared down for the last 16th of a mile. Oh, this is a very promising 2-year-old. Mike Smith says go with Royal Delta, and she is going indeed. Will take charge is surging, and it's a photo finish. It's too close to call. Alpha wins the Woodward.
Broadcasting live from the backstretch at Saratoga, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow. Racing Across America is brought to you by Pannell's Restaurant, a Saratoga tradition since 1922. 284 Jefferson Street, just minutes from the track. And Thoroughfan, giving the fan a voice. Find them at thoroughfan.com.
Good morning and welcome to Live on the Saratoga Backstretch. It's Racing Across America. I'm Seth Merrow. Happy you joined us. Things are a little wet this morning. The steeplechase event has been canceled. The turf racing is off, except for at this point the Troy a little bit later on. So we'll keep our eyes to the sky and to the weather reports to see how that holds up. Going to be joined in just a moment by Joe Clancy, Saratoga Special. A little bit later on, Jason Blewett, New York Racing Association. We'll wind things up today with Rick Violet, trainer and president of the New York Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association. But we're happy to be joined now. Every Thursday, it's one or the other of the Clancy brothers. This morning, Joe Clancy. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning. How are you?
Very good.
Besides a little damp, right?
Yeah, a little damp. And as I said earlier, I left my jacket home on the coldest morning on the track. How did that work out? But Joe, let's catch up. Last week, it was a big week for the Saratoga Special because on sales week, things are non-stop, which is 10 straight days?
12 straight days.
12 straight days.
Yes. I had a few, I think we had 3 60-page papers, a couple 56ers, so yeah, a lot of work. A lot of late nights, a lot of stress with the printer. You know, we'll make it. We'll make deadline. We promise. So, but we got it done, got through it, and great thanks to the advertisers who support it during that week. I mean, it's amazing, and you see Sean, you see me, you see Tom Law, but there's a lot of people who help get it done, you know, and we couldn't do it without any of them. We kind of go through that. You're like, well, if that person wasn't here, they shortened it up by an hour. They say, think about it, they shortened up our night by half an hour or an hour, so it makes a big difference, everybody.
And we should mention again, we've talked about it before, but you have a great intern program that is really, then some of the folks have springboarded on to really nice positions in the industry. Travis Stone certainly comes to mind, and there have been a number of others. Talk a little bit about the internship
Yeah,
program.
it's kind of neat. I mean, we call them interns, but they're not quite they're more than volunteers, and or more than interns, less than volunteers. I don't know, but it's kind of fun. And Travis Stone jumped in, wrote a bunch of stories for us, always wanted to be a track announcer. He was still in college when he did stuff for us, and you know, now look at him, he's track announcer at Monmouth Park. Jim Mulvihill works for the NTRA, spent a couple summers with us, which is great to see. You know, we like to think we're a gateway in. It's certainly not a formalized program where you're going to get college credit or anything like that, but it is a gateway if you want to come work, meet a lot of people, learn all sorts of things about the industry. You know, writing for sure, but there's obviously more to it than that. Gabby Gaudet is now at Arlington Park, has done a couple things with us, and she comes back to Maryland, does the TV there, and it's really fun. It's great to see the kids, we call them kids, I guess we can. Great to see young people sort of get a foothold in the industry and make a career out of it. You know?
And over on the handicapping side, I know over the years Pete Fornatal has been handicapping for you guys. Brian Nadeau has handicapped. And I meant to mention it last week, but maybe it's just as well I waited to this week. You have a consensus box for handicappers in there, and John Shapazian's knocking it out of the park.
He's having a great year, and he's another one. He stopped me in the backyard one day at the end of the meet, showed me his stats, and said, I've kept my stats all summer. Could I be your handicapper next year? We said, sure, come on board. And yeah, he last checked, he was at 66 winners, I think, something like that. And maybe that was before Monday, so I think he's a little better than that now.
Last check, he was humiliating me. That's all. No, I'm chasing, like I say, the last 4 or 5 days, I just felt like I was treading water a little bit. So when somebody's out there actually doing the breaststroke or freestyle, I applaud that. So good for him. But again, remind people that the Saratoga Special is available each and every racing day at the racetrack. Well, you're every racing day, correct?
Every racing day. Well, no, not Mondays.
Not
no,
Mondays.
No paper on Mondays. But
except for that sales stretch.
Except for that sales stretch.
So it's on the track, various locations around the city as well. But you can also catch it online at thisishorseracing.com.
Correct.
And
Yep.
up in the
There's
corner.
a whole digital edition section, and you can read everything. Actually, go back to 2007 on a rainy day like today. It's a perfect time to do it. You can find a whole lot of archive stuff back there as well.
And I've said it before, it's a lot of fun. Obviously, it covers all the racing here, but it's much, much more. It's humorous. You and Sean do some great columns. He's got the cup of coffee, and you've got your column as well. Inside the rail and outside the rail all year long. Sean's his cup of coffee during the race meet, and really fun. The quotes I find fun, too, the quotes from around the track.
Yeah, that's great. They're the things that don't make a story somewhere, but they're great insights into the horse people and what goes into the work that people do with the horses. So and that part's really fun.
So again, Saratoga Special, highly recommended. Joe, let's go back to last week. A couple of steeplechase races on Wednesday and Thursday, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about, because the winner on Wednesday was Manicore. I like that horse because it was a runner coming out of a flat race that had shown some ability over the steeplechase, over the jumps before. James Day and Patty Young, and Manicore gets it done. And I said it last week, that's an angle I like. I love when horses have some ability over the flats and can kind of go back and forth, particularly when they come off a good effort over the flats. That really attracts my attention.
Yeah, and if that horse had really done, I mean, his steeplechase form was okay, and then to me, he ran that well, wins a flat race at Belmont, and that means he's in very good form to me. And the race was a funny kind of race. Patty Young, if you don't know by now, is one of the top jump jockeys out there. You need to pay attention to him when he gets on a horse. I think it was the first time he'd ridden him, and put the horse on the lead. It's basically no pace, and he won the race all the way around. He was in front, controlled everything. They took a couple runs at him, and just a fantastic ride by Patty. Great effort by the horse. It was Irish Heritage Day, and it was an Irish-bred horse, an Irish trainer, and an Irish jockey. So there's your angle for sure.
Yeah, that's right. And now I'm looking at Thursday's results. It was Cat Feathers, and Cat Feathers, Kate Dalton trains Dalton, the rider. What's the relationship, rider and jockey?
They're husband and wife.
There you go.
Kate and Bernie Dalton.
Happy dinner at the Dalton
happy
household
dinner.
that
She's
night.
a New York bred too, so it went all. They had a great day. She won the same race a couple of years ago. Another great ride. Bernie saved a lot of ground, did a nice job with her, and it was nice to see her get back in the win column. She's been taking on some tougher horses in open company, away from the fillies and mares, and it was nice to see her get back in the win column for the first time.
Yeah, that was a $75,000. That was the Ogden Phipps, so certainly a nice performance there coming out of the one hole and getting it done. As noted, with the weather, the steeplechase race was canceled for this morning. We were up in the press box on Monday, kind of anticipating the weather. It was right at the end of the day. There was just a little group of us left and thinking, well, what happens to the steeplechase? And I thought, I think they canceled one. And I went back when I got home. It's 2008, I believe. It's just fairly recently that they canceled one, rescheduled. And I guess that's the game plan for today's race as well?
Yeah, the plan right now is to reschedule and come back on Monday. And I think that's a little bit tentative, and probably depends on some other entries, and depends on if they'll probably bring it back as is. So it kind of depends, make sure those trainers all want to come back and run on Monday, but I think that's the plan. And there's really no other option. You could run the race on I don't think the race would be, it's more of a damage to the turf course kind of thing than a safety thing. We run on softer ground than this at our other races, but they're one-day race meets. They've got a year to put the course back together. Horses are taking off, landing. It certainly puts some pressure on a soft turf course, and we don't want to do that here in Saratoga for sure. We run on the outer part of the turf, but it's not something you want to do. You just don't want to cause a problem that is unnecessary. And obviously you can't move it to the dirt. That would not work. Way too slippery, and they tried it once in the 60s, I think, at Charlestown, and they abandoned that experiment from the beginning.
On the dirt with the jumps?
Yes.
Oh.
You got to really get into the history books, but yes, they had tried some dirt jump racing at Charlestown in I want to say the 60s, but before my time, and obviously that was not something they wanted to try again. So it makes sense, and yeah, like you said, it has happened before here, and it's in the back of your mind when the weather hits like this. If this had rained last night only, probably dries out enough to go ahead and have the race today.
So it's not a safety issue so much as protecting the course. And I did talk. You mentioned I talked to Bill Gallo a few weeks ago. I was talking about the Parks day they had, and it was raining earlier this year. And he mentioned just what you said. Typically, the steeplechase races are on the outer part of the turf course, so they're not necessarily going to chew up the turf course. But at a meet like this, I guess you have to.
Yeah, a short meet like Saratoga, that inner turf course is kind of narrow anyway. If the rail's out, I get it. It's not really what we want to do. It's not what anybody wants to do. So I think it'll be fine tomorrow. Actually, should be great. Good race tomorrow. Hopefully, this Wednesday race holds together and they come back on Monday. And I think it's great that Saratoga wants to work with the steeplechase horsemen and have the race, rather than just cancel it and try to see if those horses might run back at the meet in another spot.
And as you noted, it's potentially on Monday. You said it's tentative, but is it tentatively again an early post time?
From what I've heard, it would be a 1 o'clock post time. But again, this is all still. Hopefully, there'll be some more details on all of that here in the next the rest of the day, and we'll see what we come up with.
Updates coming on that. All right, let's take a look at tomorrow's race. Tomorrow's race, again, it's a little $75,000 stake, the Walsh Novice. And again, remind people what the novice connotation means.
It's basically a way to restrict the race instead of doing it by ages. Where in flat racing, you've got a race for 3- and 4-year-old horses. It basically restricts the race by when the horse broke his maiden. So he couldn't have broken his maiden before March of last year, which sort of gives those horses a window to run in some quality races without stepping up and taking on the older pros of the game. Mostly because you can switch to steeplechasing at any age. So a horse can be a 7-year-old maiden if he had a long flat career. He could also be a 4-year-old maiden. So it sort of just depends on when that happens, and it gives the horses a nice little niche and makes for some competitive racing, because you see horses who've all come in on a similar path. They've won a race or two and get a shot at a nice purse today.
All right, should be fun, and that's the first race tomorrow. Again, with the early post time at 12:25. We're going to talk a little bit about it, and while we talk, we're going to go back and watch the Kaiser Novice here on July 24th. That's going to be won by Awesome Pearl. Awesome Pearl comes back again tomorrow. Awesome Pearl will just win over Kingdom. Kingdom was my top pick. You've informed me that Kingdom is scratched, but I did have Awesome Pearl right underneath. So Awesome Pearl comes back, and I made the switch on the finishing position. Awesome Pearl picks up 3 pounds, which over the 2 3/8 miles might be a little bit of a detriment, but now he's scratched into Awesome Pearl. A Dress Unknown to me is interesting, coming from a race over the hurdles down at Monmouth, a nice win. And then I used Skodik in the what is now the 3rd position. This one wound up leaving the course in the Kaiser, but prior to that, it just seemed to be in some very, very good form. So it wouldn't shock me at all to see Skodik bounce back tomorrow.
Yeah, me neither. He was my pick in the Kaiser, actually. And he had, if you go back, rewind that tape a little farther when you're back home on your computer, and he gets clobbered at about it's the first fence on the back, so it's the 7th fence of the race. And he's actually right next to Awesome Pearl and right next to Kingdom in the back. There was a really fast pace that day, and Skudik's right there. Kingdom just jumps left and smashes into Skudik, and everybody gets discombobulated and gets sort of back out again. And you can see why Patty Young said, okay, enough, we're not going to continue. So if the horse is fine, I like that he's coming back for Jack Fisher and Patty Young. Very tough race, a little tougher race than the Kaiser, which is the way it should be. Awesome Pearl ran really well, gets a chance to come back and do it again. That was a funny race, the Kaiser. They went really fast early. The 2 horses that ended up in a photo at the end were in the back last of 9. They were 9th and 10th all the way around, and both jockeys said I was doing all I could do just to keep up for the first mile, and then sort of they fell into a nice closing scenario. We'll see what happens tomorrow. I think people would have learned that that's not the way to do it, so the pace should be a little slower. Longer race, too, 2 3/8 miles. Address Unknown, to me, is very tough, very interesting, especially with all the rain we've had. English form, very good flat form, won some nice races in England, and has done nothing wrong in his short jump career for Cyril Murphy, so I think he's tough. Skudik, I like Bluegrass Summer will be a price, and Jonathan Shepard trains him, and he won. He had sort of a mediocre race early in the meet last year, came back his 2nd race of the meet, 3 weeks later, and ran great. So this is the same setup. Had a mediocre race in the Kaiser, comes back, gets a chance here, going a little farther, and we'll see how he can do. Again, Jonathan Shepard has not won a race at the meet yet. That might be not won a jump race at the meet yet, and that might be his best chance, and maybe get a little value. So. I like Address Unknown, Skudik, and Bluegrass Summer, and if we need a 4th, we'll go Awesome Pearl. I question whether Awesome Pearl wants the quick turnaround. You can look at his form a little bit. He's kind of in and out a little this spring. And again, I also don't think he's going to.
Welcome back to the Handicapper Sport. A little blackout up here, a little power failure over in our mobile studio, but we're back on the air now, so we'll continue with Joe Clancy. Just kind of wrap things up. Again, Joe, no steeplechase today, but there is a steeplechase tomorrow. Again, as usual, the early post time of 12:25. And just once again, your thoughts in that steeplechase tomorrow.
It's a very competitive race, and I think one thing to keep in mind and maybe go back a little bit is look at some horses with soft turf form. It's obviously going to be softer than it's been at any of the jump races so far at the meet. To me, that leaves Address Unknown. You've got to use him a little bit. You got to factor him into your race for sure. Bluegrass Summer, to me, is a horse to think about. He's got a lot more experience in some of these. He's won at the track, Shepherd at a price.
It's a Shepherd I haven't used, though,
yeah,
so I'll kill myself.
Sorry, I don't want to
wins.
worry you, but
yeah.
and I still like Skudik. I'm going to come back to Skudik. He was my pick 3 weeks ago, and I think he had a terrible excuse. I mean, horse just smashed into him. He lost all chance. He was in a good spot the way the race unfolded. So you got to come back to him a little bit.
All right, should be fun with a lot of those horses coming back. And again, in a race where the pace kind of melted a little bit, they're going a lot further tomorrow. So strategically, I think the Walsh tomorrow is going to be a lot of fun. All right, Joe, as always, we appreciate the visit. We remind people Saratoga Special, find it on track, around town, or online. Website address, this is horseracing.com. Joe, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to head to our break. When we come back, our friend Jason Blewett of the New York Racing Association right after this.
Face it, most horse racing websites are just too much clutter, too much to navigate through. Next time, log on to capitalotb.com. Our newly designed website is easier than ever to use, with all the information the professional horse player needs. capitalotb.com.
I got it. Watch me. I got it. Hey! I got something that makes me want to shout. I got something that tells me what it's all about. I got a move that tells me what to do. If you don't, brothers and sisters, then you won't know what it's all about.
I'm Brian Nadeau of HorsePlayerNow.com. Did you know that each Monday during the Saratoga Racing Meet, all Capital Bets account holders can earn an additional 1% in their player rewards program and wagering on Saratoga races? For more information, log on to CapitalOTB.com.
Missed one of our TV shows? No worries. Now you can catch all your favorite programs online. Simply log on to CapitalOTB.com and click on the YouTube link at the bottom of the homepage. And look for our new podcast coming soon. CapitalOTB.com. Log on today.
Using CapitalOTBBet.com is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Simply log on with your username and password from the homepage. 2. Fund your Capital OTB account through our Easy Money, Green Dot, or Visa MasterCard options. And 3. Place your bet on one of our 3 easy-to-navigate wagering platforms, Capital Bet TV, Capital Bet Express, or Capital Bet Pro. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
I'm Jeff Carl. Join me Saturdays and Sundays at 9 for the Handicappers Report. We'll handicap the top tracks across the country and help you prepare for the weekend in racing. That's the Handicappers Report, weekends at 9, only here on the OTB TV network.
This is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Welcome back to Racing Across America, live from the Saratoga backstretch as we kick off another racing week. A little rainy, a little bit of a change after really a couple of straight weeks of really, really nice weather. But we're happy to be joined now by Jason Blewett of the New York Racing Association. Morning, Jay.
Good morning. It's good to be here. I just want to let you know, trekking back here in the rain, my appearance fee will have to be doubled to $4.80. All right?
Very good. We'll work that out. But we appreciate it. I was trying to get you on last year. Finally, the last day to meet, you said, well, next year I'm committed. So I was holding you to the commitment.
Right.
Because we absolutely wanted you back here. And I'll say it right at the top. I've said it to you before. I really enjoy your work. I'm a guy, folks who watch the show know that for years I had a little television production company in town. A lot of our shows were hosted, so I was behind the camera. And I knew working with hosts, I had a couple of regular hosts who were absolutely great, but every once in a while you get subs or whatnot, and you realize the job's not as easy as it looks. Some of people don't knock it out. Now on the other side of the camera, I really know it's not as easy as it looks, and you do an absolutely great job, not only with Nairo, but with the MSG
No,
Plus
I appreciate that. I think it's all about just getting the reps in. I mean, obviously, I love racing. I love it more than anything. Passionate about the game, and it's just a matter of just getting in front of the camera and getting your reps in, like pretty much like anything else in life.
And you keep the shows moving, and you have enthusiasm. So, again, you do a really good job. And I just want to ask you, that's obviously not a career path when you're a kid. When did you kind of shift and think, maybe on the television side will work?
Well, I got lucky. I mean, things worked out in the end. It was more of me working for Glenn Mathis. I was working for Glenn, who has since retired as the director of communications. I was working for him in the press box. And I think it was a day Mike Chirac, who at the time was doing the morning line, this is back in the late 90s, probably 99, called in sick one day. And John Abrial was hosting Talking Horses with Mike Chirac, and they asked me, "Do you want to, jump in?" And I said, "Sure. I'll take a shot. That'll be fun." And of course, I thought I was great. And it's probably about 3 or 4 years now, but I found an old VHS tape from around 2000, and I said, "Oh, let me throw this in," and I had to shut it off after about 15 seconds. I mean, I was nauseous. But look, Naira was. They were patient, and it's all worked out, man. It's good.
And fill us in now, too. I've alluded to it, but it's not just the pregame show. It's not just the races. Give us the full gamut of what you're doing hosting-wise.
Well, I mean, and let me say this. I mean, I'm fortunate in my mind, not to denigrate anybody and not to disparage anybody. In my mind, I work with the best racing talent there is on camera. I mean, Andy Serling, who I sit next to year-round, I mean, he's as terrific and insightful a color analyst you could find. Working with Richie Migliore after the races with Saratoga Insider. I mean, the perspective he brings, and Maggie Wolfendale is terrific too. But I mean, outside of having just grade 1 talent to work with. Some of the things I do, aside from Talking Horses, the pregame show, Andy and I do the pre-race stuff, but the real, getting behind the scenes, Saratoga Insider, which is a new show we started right after Preakness, Wednesday after Preakness. It's a show Richie and I co-host after the races on MSG Plus, which has replaced the old replay show, the old Harvey Pack and Johnny I replay show. So that's been a lot of fun. I think, it took a few weeks. We were fortunate to have California Chrome going for the Triple Crown and the Belmont Stakes. Took a few weeks to get our sea legs underneath us, but I think we've really found a sweet spot with that show that Eric Donovan's producing. So that's more the after show. That's a lot of fun on MSG Plus. And the National Racing Report, which to me, I kind of just a traffic cop, move things along, but to be able to sit next to both Andy and Richie and hear those guys go back and forth, I mean, it's really, there's a lot of times, and it happens every show, I go, I didn't think of that. Oh, I learned something new today. Yeah. So it really is a treat.
And that is a great product, and folks can find it. It's weekly on the
on MSG Plus, right? National Racing Report. We do one a week. Up here, we film it Monday morning at 10 a.m. That'll go up. That goes up on Naira.com on Wednesday and airs Tuesday on MSG Plus.
Speaking of MSG Plus, you also do. There's some big race broadcasts on that. What was it? 4 up here this
Friday live at Saratoga. I think it was 7 actually.
Oh, it's 7 every Friday. You're right.
Every Friday, and it's one Sunday as well.
Yeah.
So our next, the John Morrissey this Friday, which not only is it Alabama Eve. I mean, that race has come up like the Hudson and the Empire Classic combined. I mean, with Saratoga Snacks coming back, it's just an outstanding field. It's really a good group of horses.
And I always say it, I like to ask the trainers and jockeys and whatnot that come in here, horsemen, horse owners, how they got involved in the game. And I say you can come in on either side of the spectrum. You're born into the game, or you crawl under the track fence. You're somewhere in the middle. According to the story I read, it was family day at the racetrack.
It was family day.
Where you didn't want to go.
Yeah, I didn't want to go. You'll get the Cliff Notes condensed version because I have a tendency to ramble on. But it was the summer of 92 or 93. My dad was doing some volunteer work for the Floor Park Youth Council. And I grew up literally in the west end of Floor Park, where, I mean, Belmont was a stone's throw away. Never had any interest in going. In junior high and even high school, my high school Floor Park Memorial, right across Plainfield Avenue. I mean, you walk 10 feet, you're in the stable entrance of Belmont. But they were having a family day at the races. He got tickets. I hemmed and hawed, didn't want to go. And my dad said, tough, we're spending the day at Belmont as a family. And that was it. I mean, it's probably, this is not the time or place, but you think the twists and turns of life and how life can just change like that. And whether I was working in the industry now or not, I mean, that trip to Belmont that summer, it changed my life forever. It was literally, went to the track that one day, fell in love, and that was it.
It's a story of serendipity then, because
Yeah.
then later somebody's sick, you fill in, and that leads to the television path. But you talk about that, and that's what's nice about certainly up here at Saratoga, but it continues with the backyard at Belmont. I think there are a lot of family days. I was amazed doing this show this year, and normally during the year there's a lot of handicapping, so we're talking to people like Gabby Gaudet out at Arlington, the folks down at Monmouth or whatnot. I was amazed how big Father's Day is at a lot of tracks.
Yeah.
And I think that's the game plan. Take Dad out to the track, and he brings the family with him.
Yeah, go figure. Father's Day, the biggest day, second biggest day of the Belmont Spring Summer Meet. I think that is, for a lot of families down on Long Island and maybe even in other parts, it's just a tradition. They've been, it just gets passed down from one generation to another, because I can even think before I was working in the game and in high school, and once I was bitten by the racing bug, there were guys from town, people I went to high school with, or even people I lifeguarded with who were in college, who Father's Day, that was the day they went as a family to the races at Belmont Park, even if it was that one time a year.
I was amazed. I'd never realized that, but as I talked to people, it was somebody maybe that weekend, about 40 area, Lisa Blow, I'd gone to their website and they talked about how big a day it was, and she said, yeah, so the rest of the week, and it was a huge day at every. Dad goes to the track.
Dad goes to the track, and I mean, in the greater picture, I think it's just all about this game. I mean, being with friends, family, and just having a great time. Whether you're handicapping for 5 hours, or you're just, you're playing the horses off a jockey, or what the jockey silks are. It's just about having a good time.
And that's all demonstrated up here at Saratoga, like no place else, with the folks in the backyard. That's part of what makes this place so special. All right, why don't we take a look? You got a couple of ideas for today. We'll tap into your thinking. The second race today, Warriors Hero, to me, showed some speed going longer on a sloppy track. I like him on the cutback in that race to Broadway Bay. The debut kind of seemed one to build on for me, and Celebrate We Will, I thought was kind of interesting, with potentially some precocious breeding, but this is a 4-year-old making a debut, so some of that, some of the factors I like in debuters get mitigated maybe a little bit by those facts.
Right, I mean, he's a New York-bred Malibu Moon who has a nice pedigree, and it's taken him obviously quite some time, Celebrate We Will, to make it to the races. Tough spot as well, it almost goes without saying. That inside post going 7 is just not a place I want to be. But maybe he'll run well for Bruce Levine, whose horses have been running okay here. But, as I said to you off camera, I mean, look who you're talking to. You can't have me on without giving out an even money shot. I mean, look who is sitting in this chair. And like you, I think Warriors Hero is going to be pretty tough. Just facing opens last time, 9 furlongs against None Like Nolan, a bit too much. And he should have won his second start on June 22nd. He was pretty good in defeat, just never got a breather and was picked off right at the wire.
And the speed, now the cutback, that all factored into it.
Yes, sir.
Seventh race this afternoon. We talked a little bit about it earlier because we had Matt Graves on, and that was his play of the day. He liked Isabel. I do too. There's the mitigating factor of her, though. 3-year-old faces older. Now, she's done it earlier, but against maidens. But I think the last race was just a little tough. I think moving back in against state breds makes her interesting. But here's Delicious with the wet track, I think, is one that attracts my attention.
Right.
And then Brigetta and Superior Sarah also, I think, are a little bit interesting.
No, it's funny how tough are these New York bred races. They're good downstate, they're good at Belmont in the spring and summer, but it always seems they come up a bit deeper up here. And just having a horse like Isabel, who they paid a lot for 2 summers ago up here across the street at Fasting Tipton, and she is okay. This is a big day for me, because not only am I sitting here on the set for my one shot this summer, I am the guest handicapper in the Times Union today.
I'm in today too.
Right, yeah.
That makes it interesting.
It's on, my friend.
Yeah, there we go.
But yesterday, and I had the forecast called for quite a bit of rain. I was hoping the rain would sidestep us like it has most of the meet. In the paper, took a small shot against Isabel with Superior Sarah. The wet track bothers me, but she's been running against better, one race after another. It's been quite some time, in fact, over 2 years since she was in against New York breds, and I thought that was a positive for her. But Isabel, clearly, I mean, even 3 back in her muddy maiden win, she likes a wet track.
Yeah. So that's going to be it'll be an interesting face-off today in the Times Union. That 7th race, maybe that'll be a turning point. Speaking of turning points, turning point up here at Saratoga, the Jim Dandy, as it turns, the horses we should focus on. I want to get some of your thoughts on the first 3+ weeks of the meet. One of them, when we have the stretch run to the Jim Dandy, we'll watch Wicked Strong get it done, the number 7 over the number 4. Tonalist Kid Cruz runs 3rd, Commanding Cruz 4th. But I thought this was a really nice performance by Wicked Strong and a good setup performance by, again, number 4, Tonalist. What are your thoughts coming into the Travers, particularly now that Baffert is essentially committed Bayern, who I think is a monster, but has huge questions on the distance.
Yeah, going 1.25 miles, and it certainly seems like just picking apart the Haskell and his running style with Bayern. It was so good also winning the Woody Stevens on the Belmont undercard. Clearly, I think the Monmouth main track is conducive to a horse with his kind of running style, with that big sort of blinding high cruising speed. Different ball game, shipping to Saratoga, going 1.25 miles. And I think he catches as deep a Jim Dandy crew as we've had in recent memory, even if we're just talking about Wicked Strong and Tonalist. I think they're both legitimately good horses. And, without seeing posts or past performances or anything like that, off the top of my head, I think Wicked Strong and Tonalist they're authentically good, and I like them more than I do Bayern, just because of the 1.25 miles and not running at Monmouth Park and not running in a sprint up here.
And I think you look over the years, I don't think Bob Baffert's a Saratoga fan to begin with, so I think he's always reluctant to come up here. And unless horses are pointed to big races, that's always kind of a negative too. Let's also talk about the Whitney, Marino with a nice performance over It's My Lucky Day, Will Take Charge. Obviously the head scratcher there was Palace Malice, but Pletcher's come out of that and said, couldn't find anything, so they're going to look at the Woodward. It'd be very interesting to see what he does in there. But again, it was a really nice performance by Marino. I think It's My Lucky Day and Will Take Charge. It's My Lucky Day, as kind of now said, I belong in the conversation in this year's handicap division for sure. And Will Take Charge, I think, needed to run well. And given the pace scenario, I think that 3rd place finish again kind of validated. Okay, he's still in the mix.
He ran terrifically well for D. Wayne. He's a horse that likes Saratoga, and clearly the way that race played out with Moreno on the lead after the slow break, he was able to make the point and was able to kind of slow it down and back it down with Junior, and It's My Lucky Day, who was up close and inside. Nobody made a serious run. It was kind of, in a way, the Whitney almost went out with a thud because you were expecting other horses to really show up. I mean, not including Palace Malice, who was a complete head scratcher, but a good effort for Will Take Charge. And the beauty of it is they're all coming back here, or supposedly coming back Labor Day weekend in the Woodward, which is nice.
And it was a handicap division that early in the year we were excited about, and then there was maybe some question marks, but I think we've set things up now for a really interesting remainder of the year. Jay, also doing some research last night, I read a little bit, you had some comments on your betting strategy and whatnot, and I found it interesting. Kind of sounded like you pick your spots, and there was an interesting quote that
I don't want to work for free up here. Is that it? Yeah, it's been true. You know, I mean, sometimes you have to learn life lessons the hard way, and, I'll just leave it at that. At one time in my early 20s here, thought I knew everything, and, you're so caught up with being in Saratoga Springs for the 6 weeks. Yeah, we don't want a reprise of working for free up here. Even though I love my job.
I thought we've all been there. We all know exactly that feeling. But that was a great quote. And so now you kind of pick your spots. Are there races you like better than other races? For me, I love the main races up here because I think if you know a little something about the breeding or you do a little research, you find things that aren't on the page and you can maybe find some value. I like turf races because usually there's value there.
Yeah, of course, and those are races you can get cute with. Second-time starters, pedigree. I like betting horses first off the claim, off trainer changes. In my book in this day and age, trainer is the most important thing, and everything, all the other angles and variables fall in behind who's running the horse and who's saddling the horse. I enjoy the pick five. Pick five's a great bet, and I think anybody watching this show is probably aware of the value that can be had, with the 15% takeout and the 50-cent minimum in the pick five. I still like playing the late pick four and win bets. I wouldn't say there's any specific kind of race I enjoy betting over another. just like the action.
Yeah,
like action.
I hear you, but now you've developed the willpower to step away. I still have not done that. I got to have a little something going every race, which.
And as an employee of Naira, I thank you. All right, keep up the great work.
I guarantee you won't be working for. It's people like me who guarantee
thank you.
You won't be working for free. I want to talk a little bit about one more race before we go. You had a couple of comments on Twitter about Requoit, who was really impressive the other day, and we had George Weaver in on Sunday. We talked a little bit, and part of that story is just the sire off to the red hot start. Warriors Reward.
Yeah, who was trained by Ian Wilkes, won the Grade 1 Carter, got better, I think, in his 4-year-old season as an older horse for Ian Wilkes. And but I just think it's amazing, a son of Medaglia d'Or, even though he was more of a sprinter, longer sprinter / miler during his racing career, that a son of Medaglia d'Or, you just have this in your head, because he was such a, a router at a horse that got good during his 3-year-old season. It was even better as a 4-year-old and an older horse for Bobby Franco. You would think a son of Medaglia d'Or might pass off those qualities, but the Warriors Rewards, I think he's got 7 winners from his first 13 runners.
Yeah, and one of the 13 was in a race, another one won.
Amazing.
So, yeah, it really is incredible. All right, Jay, we'll let you go. We absolutely appreciate the visit, however, and as I said, I'm echoing comments I hear as well. You do a great job on the pre-show, the pre-race comments, and on all the MSG broadcasts, and we're thrilled you came by.
No, just fortunate enough to, again, like I said, I work with some of the best talent in the game, and just happy to be here. It's great, Really, it's as great, and the weather's been terrific, as superb as the first 3 weeks were. It's terrific how the intensity just seems to pick up. Start of Alabama week, and let's keep it going, my friend.
Absolutely, it sounds good. All right, Jay, thanks.
All right, thanks, Seth.
Going to take our next break. When we come back, Rick Violet, president of the New York Thoroughbreds Horsemen's Association, right after this. Stay tuned.
This is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
The future of online betting is here, and only at the all-new CapitalOTBBet.com. CapitalOTBBet.com delivers a state-of-the-art wagering experience found nowhere else in horse racing. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today. Summer at Saratoga, and there's no better place to watch all the racing action than right here on OTB TV. Each morning, the Handicappers Report brings you selections and analysis from our professional handicappers. Then stick around as the biggest names in racing join us live from the backstretch. The top trainers, jockeys, and racing personalities all share their unique insights and observations. For more than 20 years, there's been just one place to turn for unparalleled coverage of the Saratoga Racing Meet, Capital OTB and OTB TV.
Fascinated by the world of horse racing? Interested in honing your handicapping skills? Class is in session. Night school, Monday nights. Easy to access online. It's free, interactive, and informative for the casual and serious race fan. Horse Player Now Buzz. Live horses to watch emailed to you daily. Our eyes, your prize. Night school in the buzz. Visit horseplayernow.com for details.
Funding your Capital OTB bet account is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Easy Money. Clearly the fastest and easiest method of depositing funds into your account. Make deposits or withdrawals in just minutes. 2. Green Dot Money Pack. Gives you instant access to your funds. Green Dot Money Packs are available at thousands of retailers nationwide. And 3. MasterCard Visa. Simply click on the link from the funding page, enter your account information, and fund your account. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Hey race fans, head down to the all-new Clubhouse Racebook. With live horse racing on more than 250 flat-screen TVs, state-of-the-art wagering terminals, and amazing Vegas-style atmosphere. The Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany.
Welcome back to Racing Across America on this Wednesday morning. As promised before the break, we are joined now by Rick Violet, trainer and president of the New York Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association. Good morning, Rick.
Good morning.
And for folks who aren't familiar, NYTHA, New York Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association, what's the purpose, what's the mandate?
The mandate, it's really threefold. It's benevolence for the employees on the backside and those in the industry. We also take, steps in the legislation for the protection of the horses and also, the employees on the backside. And we also have a mandate to constantly do some research, whether it's LASIX or other tying up or breakdowns or testing or whatever. But those are the three mandates.
And the hot button issue over the past week or so has been one that kind of seemed to calm down a little bit, but bubbled up again. As I say, a week and a half or so ago, and some prominent trainers issued a letter calling for the ban of race day LASIK. Subsequently, some horsemen's organizations, including NITHA, came out with statements about that. Give us your take on this whole LASIK issue and how it's bubbled up over the past week.
It really has, and there's no question it's Jockey Club generated, and they had a lot to do behind the scenes in ramping up to the letter and into the round table and the meeting with Will the other day. The horse, we have a kind of a simple, it's sometimes meant to be a very complicated issue, but it really isn't. It's about the welfare of the horse. And all the science points that, to 90% of the horses bleeding, that it's an increasing episode after episode. It scars the tissue in the lung, and we have a remedy for it. It stops bleeding in some horses. It lessens the episodes of the frequency in other horses. And like all medications, it doesn't have a great impact on some other horses. But absent, a reasoned, scientific, backed up alternative therapy, we think it's kind of irresponsible to take away the therapy when we know there's still, put your head in the sand and pretend that they're not bleeding, or let them bleed and take more time between races. And the practical measures are just staggering when you start to think of it. It's nice for guys to have 100 horses in large outfits that they have other horses to replace. A horse that just bled might need extra weeks. They have another maiden, another A other than, another stake horse that they can kind of slot in. But the small and middle size outfits would be devastated by something like this. Small owners, all of a sudden, we have another issue that would limit their experience in horse racing. We have so many physical issues that we address with horses that we have there's no remedy for. This is one we have a remedy, and to take that away it is really, it isn't best for the horse. And our mantra is, if it's good for the horse, it's good for racing. If it's not good for the horse, it isn't good for racing. And nobody, even in the latest onslaught of rhetoric and everything, they've talked about perception and all that. They haven't spoken about what's best for the horse. And I think that gets lost out there.
And as I watched the video replay of the roundtable on Sunday, there was a spokeswoman from the RMTC who made the point that I think everybody agrees with, but it's worth stating, that no medication is not good for the horse. I mean, to say, geez, zero medication, because these are athletes, and even human athletes, you have to have some kind of medication to rehab after certain situations. And so the idea that we will do away with medications, that isn't in the welfare of the horse either.
Well, it isn't. I mean, I don't know how many millions or tens of millions of people are on a low dose of aspirin a day, and they don't have to be athletes. And, it's therapeutic medication, and that's kind of sometimes also the rhetoric that comes out anti-LASIK, as though, medication is necessarily bad, and it isn't. And it's incredibly controlled in the industry. What's happened in the last few years with this program of standardized rules and medications across the country has taken hold. It's not happening as fast as some people would like, but right now 88% of the handle of racing that represents 88% of the national handle are committed to this national program, and that's huge. In New York, we're not there yet. We haven't, dotted all the I's and crossed the T's, but essentially we're there. And as you've seen, and for sure that we've reduced fatalities by 40% in the last 2 years, and it's not good enough, and we need to do better. But it's a huge start. We're less than half of the national average because we've done things like clenbuterol is basically out of the game. The corticosteroids are further out from race day. The analgesics, the buttes and the banamines, their permitted levels are much lower so that they don't have an effect at the time of the race. So we haven't been sitting on our hands. We're holding firm on the Lasix issue, but we've been very aggressive and proactive in this medication program across the country, along with accrediting laboratories so that they're doing a top-notch job and a multiple violation so that the guys who don't obey the rules and are frequent offenders, that they can have some time, a serious time on the bench.
And that's worth reiterating. This has been something, and this has been a hot-button issue now, going back at least 2 or 3 years, maybe even a little bit longer. But there has been progress. A number of states now have signed on to uniform medication rules, as you say. Violations are now being treated differently, too. So the industry is moving. Not as fast as many people would like, but we are moving forward.
If you compare the movement in the last 2 years to the last 20 years, it's light speed. And it's not difficult to change. I mean, it's not easy to change regulations. Some states have to go through legislation, and then other states go through a regulatory process, and there have to be open hearings. So it's never as simple as a mandate, we're going to change it. We've been working very, very hard with the different organizations, the different states to get this thing done, and it'll get done. But the threat of federal legislation, if you don't get it done, it is a kind of a sour note. Number one, it probably isn't going to happen. We do have, I'd love to go back to D.C. and tell them the story that's really happening in the industry, because it's actually a very, very good story. That, with the tremendous advancements we've made in aftercare with the horses, and we are taking care of the retired athletes, whether it's the TAA nationally or Take Two and take the lead here in New York. So we have a much better story to tell. We're a better industry than we were, and from the last time we appeared in D.C., and that's the story that should be told out there.
Yeah, and I don't think the mainstream media focuses on that as much, the progress that's been made, as much as the kind of the bad news stories. That maybe that's newspapers in general. You look at the front page, there's a lot of bad news, but I do think that there has been a lot of progress made, as you say, going back a couple of years, that dwarfs progress made prior to that. So we're moving in the right direction. Let's talk a little bit about, as president of New York Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association, a longtime trainer in New York, you've been here over the past 10 years or so as we went through the whole franchise process. That was just, it took too long and was troubling. Looked like there was light at the end of the tunnel, and now we're back in a kind of a position where the franchise is in a little bit of flux, perhaps. You were on a panel yesterday at the Albany Law seminars that were put on that looked at the future of New York racing. What is your take on the future of New York racing?
There are no hard-line answers right now. I can tell everything is on the table, from total privatization to a semi-privatization with an attachment to the government. And we're supposed to have some kind of an answer by the end of the year. We have to have it by April of next year. But everything is on the table, whether it's for-profit, not-for-profit, and each solution has its own difficulties. There's no question. I think what the horsemen are very much concerned with is that however we move forward, there has to be basically year-round racing. There are 33,000 jobs attached to the industry, and if we took 3 or 4 months off and took the winter off, that would lop that in half, if not worse than that. But it'd only be the first domino. If we took significant time off over the winter, it would cripple the breeding industry. The farms would disappear. All the good work that's been happening and bringing more stallions and having more farms open would quickly reverse because we wouldn't have that year-round platform. And we're very, keenly interested on what they do with Aqueduct, and if they consolidate over at Belmont, that's fine, but somehow we need to have an ironclad agreement and protection on the continued revenue from the VLTs, and a continued commitment that there will be year-round racing in New York to keep the 33,000 jobs going, keep the $4.3 billion impact that we have in the state. And so we're as aggressively interested as we can be.
And give us the horsemen's take on this past winter down in New York, where they jiggered up the schedule a little bit. There was a little bit of condensation as far as the race week. Was that something the horsemen were okay with?
Yeah, we're not obtuse. it's a very big horse shortage. Or this year they're projecting another maybe 22,000. Maybe we've bottomed out as far as expected foals. And we understand, we need to put on a responsible product. So if we want to tinker and go to 4-day weeks and make some minor adjustments that make business sense and sit down, we would not push back that hard on it. But at the same time, I think the racing office and the various racing secretaries, they need to do a really hard job of recruiting horses from out of town. And we can't just lower the bar so that the status quo is okay. I think it's a two-phase effort, and if we need to manipulate the dates next year and go to 4-day weeks so that we can put on a good product, we'd certainly be able to sit down at the table.
So as New York Horsemen and New York Horsemen's organization, you look around the country, things kind of rebounded in Maryland. Things were absolutely in flux in South Florida, and it seems like they've sorted things out. We'll see how that works. Things have been in flux out in Southern California. We still have to see how that's going to work out. But going forward and looking at the future of New York, is there optimism?
There is. I mean, we're going to be here in one phase and shape. It's just when the unknown sometimes is torturous. And especially like the breeders, and I wish Barry Ostriger would kind of step up and say publicly what he said privately, and they're very concerned about what happens at Aqueduct and the racing dates, because people buy farms, build farms, invest in New York State. It's a long-term planning thing. It's not at a whim. And they need to have some stability in the industry going forward so that they can rest assured that the revenue, the racing dates, the opportunities for New York breds are going to exist.
All right, let's shift attention now to the racing side of the game. I want to talk about some of your runners that have done well at the meet and see what we can look forward to. Just a couple of days ago, we had Skinner Box go out, first time out for Patsy Simons. This one, the dam, had a little bit of a breeding punch behind her. With Better Talk Now was the sibling to the dam. So Skinner Box gets it done. We'll watch the stretch run here. It will be the number 2 Skinner Box winning under Jose Ortiz. First time out, and you would have to think with Better Talk Now, you're looking at a horse that will only get better as things get longer.
I think so. She was awfully game here, and she's been very, very professional from the first day we put tack on her. But you would think two turns would be her strong suit, down the road.
And this was, we're mid-meet, we're just past mid-meet now. But you see anything for her later in the meet?
Actually, not really. We could go back down and point for the Miss Grillo. We could actually go up to the Talma at Woodbine. But it's been an amazing partnership, Patsy and I. She says, I bring the training and she brings the magic, and it's been incredible magic. I think we've won 13 stakes in the last 4 years.
Oh, nice.
So she's a wonderful lady and has a very, very golden touch.
Very good. Let's look a little earlier in the meet. You sent out another first-time starter, Graham Crackers. This is back on July 18th. We're going to watch the stretch run. Number 8, Graham Crackers, by half a length at 9-2, sibling to Ampersand. Now, again, this was early in the meet. Will we see Graham Crackers again?
Actually, the day after the Travers, I forget the name of the stake, but there's the New York Bred Day Showcase Day.
Yeah.
She'll run that day, and it's another filly that I think two turns will benefit her, and she actually has a whole lot of pedigree to run on the turf as well down the road. So this was another, I think, high quality race. She was very game and determined, and was headed and came back, and I don't think sprinting's her strong suit.
Right, I want to ask you about a couple others before we let you go. Effie Trinket, who hasn't been seen now since, early in July down at Parks, ran 6th in the James Penny. Anything on that New York Showcase day for her?
There is, actually, the Auto is the day after, so we plan to run there. She is the first time in her life she really didn't show up at Parks, and it's probably my fault. She hadn't eaten the last couple of days before the race, didn't eat well, and just showed signs she might not have been 100%, and she showed me definitely the day she ran. So she's doing well now. She's been a wonderful filly for us, and I expect her to rebound big time.
And give us a little update on Samrat.
Samrat, actually, he's back here at the barn. He had a stress fracture in his right shin, and we sent him down to Patty Hogan and they drilled about a half a dozen or 8 holes in the cannon bone itself to stimulate really good growth back, because sometimes those little stress fractures don't heal well because they're the circulation, and it's not really a broken bone in a way. It is technically, but this way with drilling the holes, it basically commands the bone to restructure. And he'll be back next year. Hopefully, the expectation is better than ever.
Excellent. Well, Rick, we appreciate the visit. Again, some nice horses have won already. We'll look forward to some more of the remainder of the meet as Rick trains plenty of horses, but also the president of New York Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association. Wanted to get some update again on some of those hot button issues. We appreciate the visit.
Thank you very much for having me.
Good luck in the rest of the
Thanks.
meet. All right, that'll wrap things up for Racing Across America for Wednesday morning. Again, no steeplechase, so the 12:25 race is off, but the regular post time at 1 o'clock kicks off 9 flat races. If you're going to come up, all but the Troy are off the grass today, so plan to come up. Hopefully, we'll all cash a few tickets. We'll see you again tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock for more Racing Across America.
Racing Across America is brought to you by Pannell's Restaurant, a Saratoga tradition since 1922. 284 Jefferson Street, just minutes from the track. And Thoroughfan, giving the fan a voice. Find them at thoroughfan.com.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.